you have a lot of sales reps who haven't figured out time management and how to outsource the right things
Mm,
so they can get to the one action that actually makes them money,
mm,
which is selling. You have all these guys in roofing who they'll go sell 20, 30 accounts in a week because there was an amazing storm and they're crushing it, they're signing everybody up. But guess what? If they do that week 1, week 2 they're not doing it again because week 2 is gonna require them to go back to all those from week 1 and go pick up a check, go do another inspection, go meet the inspector out at the property from the carrier. There's so many additional steps now that they're incurring on everyone in the sales, and they take them all on themselves.
mm.
And so they're project managers as well as sales reps, and it makes no sense at all.
What's up, everybody? Here we are on another episode of The Next Round with the one, the only, I've been waiting for this one for a while now, the Jake Bennington.
Let's go.
How are you, dude?
I'm good. I am good.
Thank
Yeah.
you for making the flight out here exclusively only for this podcast.
Yeah, I moved, a lot of stuff around.
Yeah.
Wasn't gonna come out, but
Yep.
flew in just for this, and yeah, thanks for
Perfect.
having me.
Pretty sure you're the first non-Utah based guest that we've had.
Really?
Yeah.
That's actually come in for it. So we're making moves, man.
Yeah.
Do it.
man, yeah,
Trendsetter.
leveling
Let's
up.
go.
Oh,
Yeah, flying people in.
beautiful. Okay, Jake, overall bio, OG in the door-to-door space, CRO of Roofix or RFX, father, husband, viral content creator, as we already talked about that.
Sure.
If you haven't checked him out, go on Instagram, the Jake Bennington.
hmm
Okay, yeah, you'll see some cool stuff. And
Yeah, some other scrub already had Jake Bennington, so I did
Uh,
do the Jake Bennington.
yes, yeah, got to make the difference on there. Okay, well, as you know, how'd you get recruited into the space? Talk to me about that. You were in pest for 10 years.
10 years. Mhm.
So let's take a trip down memory lane.
Memory lane. Yeah, it was a long time. 10 years, and they were amazing years. I loved it. Loved it. I've only good things to say about it. I was recruited by one of my best friends. His name's Connor Flynn. And I don't know if you knew Connor, he was in your region or whatever, but I was I was working at a grocery store in Park City at the time with my wife and called the Market, shout out. And he got recruited by I don't know how he got recruited, but then it was his recruiter at the time, Jeff Larson, called me out of the blue when I was on a lunch break and we were living in Provo, so we would drive all the way up like an hour, go work at the grocery store, and then we drive all the way back down. And it was during a lunch break, and he like half pitched me on it, and I was like, dude, no, like that is so no. I appreciate you reaching out, but that's I'm not interested in that. But he was good, and he convinced me to at least sit down with him next time I had a day off or something like that. And so I did. I remember going into the Aptive, but then the Altera building, and we sat down, and he said his whole spiel. And to be honest, I didn't know if I could be a salesperson. I didn't know if I'd be good at sales. I really was not sure about that. But I knew how to work hard, and he did a good job catering to that in the recruiting message. It was like, hey, as long as you knock this many doors and you prepare and you train, you do this, like as long as you work hard, this should be your result. I was confident in myself in that way. And so ultimately I'm like, well, we'll see if this is a bunch of, bull crap or not. But if this saving grace is my work ethic, then, I'm willing to take a chance on that. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
And so that was 2012?
2012.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I just got back from my LDS mission
Gotcha.
that year. And so it was the next summer that I went out and sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you were there for an entire decade. Saw the evolution
Basically,
of
yeah.
Adaptive.
Uh-huh.
Saw that whole growth period.
Yeah.
Specific question I have for you is, what did you notice was the differentiator of how they were able to grow over that time, right? Because other companies have been around since that time, but have not been able to hit that sort of apex as they have. What would
Oh man.
attribute some of that to?
Man, there's a lot. There's really a lot. You could talk about culture. I feel like our culture truly was special. and we worked hard on that. It was very, it was very intentional. And I also mean that within Aptive, I felt extra blessed because I was with Kyle Nielsen, and he really was my mentor, and how to. He would always say it's a little cheesy, but how to. But it's so true, how to be in the industry but not of the industry.
No.
And that's such a Utah phrase, but it
Yeah.
really was applicable because there's so many good things about this space, and there's so many things you really cringe at, and you don't want to be associated with at all. And but the space is so redeeming. There's so much good in it, and so it's like, how can I embrace those things and still preserve my character,
Mm.
my honesty, the things I'm proud of about myself. And he taught me that, and I think Aptive did a good job, but I was really insulated within Aptive even more by Kyle,
Mhm.
right? And what he taught. So culture's big, but I mean, honestly, as I think about this, I think that we were just relentless, especially on the recruiting side. I really do feel like we became the best in the game at recruiting, not only at how to navigate scenarios and just be really good at the actual conversation, but I just felt like we were relentless. Like there were so many times we'd go up against somebody else, and eventually they would just like throw in the towel.
Hmm.
And they kind of had the advantage. They have first movers advantage, certainly a lot of
Right.
the time.
Right.
And they had rapport, they had all the things, but they just, we would just keep staying in the fight with this person, going back and forth, and not giving up, even down to a rookie rep who, doesn't show, crazy potential that everyone's willing to throw all their effort into. It's just like every single opportunity, we gave it our all.
Mm.
And so I think that, that's hard to beat.
Do you think that was inbred in the whole organization because of like how people were always like, or was it more certain portion of the organization where like people really cared about being just relentless and keep pushing and having that motivation and drive?
Yeah, I think it was from the top down.
Hmm.
You know, Dave would work really hard, and he was always at the office and always willing to meet with any rep that, if it would make a difference. And Vess more than anybody in that sense, top down, even more than Dave for sure. Vess was relentless, and he was always willing to make the difference, down to, first year rep all the way up to, some big manager or team that you were trying to pull. And so when you see your leader like unyielding, not willing to concede in a recruiting scenario, it just really conditions you to do the exact same thing. And that's really hard to beat as an org.
Right.
So I think it got to the point where people would know, like, oh, like, oh, a rep would say, I'm meeting with another company, and they would be like crossing their fingers, hoping it's not Aptive, right? And oh, it's Aptive, like, oh, crap, like we're in for a dogfight,
Right.
then, like this is going to be a whole thing. So, and we were proud of that,
Mm.
given everybody fits in the recruiting sense. So,
And you've obviously had your fair share of recruits over the years. You grew to divisional there?
yeah, like right at the end was right there regional. My last summer signed to start the summer a little over 350 reps.
Okay.
We ended up doing a little over 14 million. It's been a while now, 14, 50 million, somewhere in there in revenue that year. And so yeah, the growth was really great, and part of that bolstered by Aptive's culture,
Yeah.
but their processes and things too. But I really had to keep coming back and give Kyle a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Kyle really was a good mentor to me, and I don't know if I would have stayed in the space as long as I did without somebody like that. So
Always good to have a good mentor.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, critical in this space. I mean, it's
100%.
critical.
Yeah. We before this we were joking about the cup. What year was it that you guys won that?
So the team I personally led was 2015.
Okay. Gotcha.
Nashville.
Talk to me about
Cashville, baby.
Cashville. Do you still have the cup sitting somewhere?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I think it's a relic at the Aptive building somewhere, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you notice in teams that have that culture that win, make it all the way through, everybody's bought in, compared to, let's say, other years where you guys didn't make it as far? Or just talk to me about the difference in teams of ones that's like, hey, we actually did make it all the way through and we were the championship team versus the non-championship team. What'd you notice?
Yeah, because I've had other teams in my downline or in my region win. And I've had a lot of teams in the semis or, right before semis, really, really close. And I think the difference you can get really deep in a tournament like that with your superstars and your people with very big personal goals, and they're like, you don't even have to touch them. You don't have
Mhm.
to maintain. They're gonna go do their thing, but that's not what's gonna win, right? Like you can't have one Steph Curry or two. Like what actually gets the team across the finish line at the end is the one that has continuity where everybody's on board with the vision. And so I compare it a lot to wrestling because wrestling is a very I wrestled in high school. I coach Provo High School here. I love it. I love wrestling so much, and it wraps into everything that I think about and do, honestly. And wrestling's a very personal sport because when you're out there actually wrestling, it's only you versus one other person,
Yeah.
and your whole team that you're prepared with, your coaches you prepared prepared with, nobody can help you. It's just you blow for blow against that person, and hopefully you can insert your will on the other person better than they can on you. And so it's very, very personal, individual in that sense. However, you go weight class by weight class, and your team is battling another team. And so at the end, your team will only win purely by the individual results of everybody on the team. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there's a very, very conscious mentality in wrestling when you're doing a team. Like I have to do my part for my own sake. I have my own record. I want to get seated well at divisionals or state or whatever it is. Like for me, yeah, I have my own personal goals. And even if my team doesn't do well, I can always go be a state champion. That's what's, pretty unique,
Mhm.
right? It's not like football where you all go or none of you go. It's
Yeah.
like my team can suck overall. I can go to state and I can win. That is true, but then at the same time, there's this mentality of if I don't score enough points on my match, then my team is missing out, and it could make the difference. We could lose by 1 point where I could have scored one more point in my individual match.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I think when it comes to teams that actually win the competition, don't just get really deep with superstars, but actually do the thing, they're able to galvanize everybody and unite and actually believe in the same shared goal. And you have to put your personal goals, they're still important and they're there, they're present, but they take second seat to what can we truly accomplish as a team, right? And that's when believability starts to spread around. And that's when it gets really, really fun too. Because a fun fact about life is that you are always willing to do so much more for somebody else than you're willing to do for yourself. I mean, maybe it's beautiful that it is that way, right? But it's like me for my own sake and my goals, I'm willing to pull back a little bit. I'm willing to coast a little bit. I'm willing to work really hard, but I'm going to kind of chill here. Oh, now that's my wife, my kids, or my team, whatever it is. I'm willing to go above and beyond and do things that I wasn't really gonna do for my own sake. And when you can unlock that mentality in a team, it's incredible because now everyone is completely bound and responsible to everyone else on the team. That's what's pulling their performance out. Isn't some internal personal stakes. It's the for the sake of the team.
And I'm sure it's very contagious in a form that you can't now not do that, right? If you're a part of that team, part of the culture, now it's very hard to just be selfish at that point. So I'm sure it probably creates that intensity and the frequency and the vibration where the team has to win. And if someone is not pulling the weight, they're going to feel really bad about it. And no one has to tell them that.
Yeah, you get to it's so true. You get to a point where if you're not doing that, you do feel ostracized. Not like in a really negative way, but
Right.
no one's calling you out
Right.
negatively or because that's counterintuitive to, the vibe as well. But when the culture transcends and gets there, it's palatable. You can feel it and you can see it in everyone's eyes. Like, are you
Mhm.
on this boat with us for real? And it closes those loose ends on people who maybe would still be like, I can hide, like the team's gonna pull us through. I can hide, but it's like, no, we see your knocks, we see your sales, we see, we see it all. And there's a lot of grace given too, which is really important. So what I mean is, I think that we were in the quarterfinals, semi, something like that, in that Nashville year, and Vess was actually coming out to visit our team in person right during that round. And I have it in my head. I'm like, man, we're gonna step up. We're gonna do some really big things. We're gonna impress because every single round, even the final round, best bet against us. He'd do his
Yeah.
predictions, 100% pick the other team every single time. And so he was visiting our team, and I'm like, okay, we're going to show out. And so he was waiting at the apartment to do nightly training with everybody after the selling was done. And I was convinced I was going to sell 85,000 accounts that day myself. I was so fired up. Never been more motivated in my life. I wanted to come into the apartment like feeling so good. I scraped and scraped to barely get to, and I got home at like 10:30 that night. And I was feeling pretty, worn down by that and obviously disappointed. I was like probably the lowest on my whole team. I didn't understand why, but some days are just like that. And I roll in and I open the door. Everyone's already there. I'm last one there. And I remember Vess saying, "Now that is a leader." Where I kind of expected maybe some looks of like, "Dang, that was a rough day," or like, "You didn't pull your weight," or I kind of walked in a little hesitant. He just immediately said, "Now that's a leader." Because it was about the work ethic.
Right.
You can't guarantee the result. You can guarantee the input, and so there was a lot of grace given on the team and that culture too, because you have to be forgiving. Like everyone's going to want to, when they buy into that culture, they're going to want to show up and they're going to want to have really good results to contribute. That's fun. That's exciting. They pulled their weight in a way that you can point to a data point and say, I did X amount of sales. I did my part. It's not like that every day though. And there are people who give it their all, but only show 1, 2, or 3 sales. And that was okay on our team too, because we could see the knocks,
Yeah.
right? And so as long as you were out there and you were knocking the doors and you were trying, like it didn't matter if you zeroed, it's okay. You did what the team was all about. It was giving it everything you had. Let the results come that come. You control what you can control. So
Right. Yeah. It's about controlling the process, not the outcome at
yeah,
that point. And I mean, like you said, it's the quote out there of being the first one in and the last one out. Like that's what people look for in the leaders. And like you're mentioning, that's what I noticed over there as well, was who was there the latest doing the recruiting meetings, who was there the earliest doing the trainings, who was there the late, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just building that so that the whole tide is rising, and it's almost a self-filtering process at that point
yeah.
of like, you're either on it or you're out of it. So transitioning here, you had an experience where you were able to go work with Sam Taggart, go be an expert for him, go consult. So a couple questions on that of like, as you took what you learned at, this company that's worth, whatever they're worth, however many thousands, hundreds of thousands of accounts, maybe even a million. I don't know if they're past that by now.
I
And
think they're nearing it. Yeah.
took that to a tiny roofing company or a tiny pest control company. What were some of the things that were, applicable that you could tie into them to help them? Because you can't just go in and say, here's a whole new playbook. Here's how you're going to do everything. It's not applicable to take what a couple hundred reps are doing compared to a small company. So what was that transition like in consulting some of those guys?
Oh man, that was life-changing for me. Because I feel like I became very proficient at the DDD model, recruiting, selling, scaling, leadership training, all that. And, very fulfilling, love it. But it's a completely different thing to then go consult a company, regardless of the industry, and to look at owner, across the table in the face and make real recommendations on how they should adjust their business model or their pay or how to be more efficient on their P&L, things like that it's very, very different. And so, truth be told, Sam and I, we were wildly underqualified to do what we were doing, but the need was so great and we were willing to serve those people. And I really wanted to learn more about the other side of the table. I did. I didn't just want to sell and recruit my whole life. There's nothing wrong with that. I felt like I wanted to grow into more of the executive understanding of the business. And so, what way to do that than to go consult on it as if you're already there? We tried. I mean, we had really good intention. We really, really tried. We tried to prepare ourselves and offer as much value to those clients as we could. We're in a flight, twice, 3 times a week all over the country, and you go to these roofing companies that are very small, very, very small. I mean, they have like 5-man sales team, and they have no resources. They don't have any SOPs. They don't have really any sales training, recruiting training of any kind. And so, what was immediately transitive that we knew to fall back on, what we realized pretty quickly is sales is sales. Recruiting's recruiting. There's differences in what you're recruiting to and how it compensates and the demographic that it's going to appeal to, but those are easy adjustments. Sales is sales. And that's what a lot of people in maybe Utah and the DDD Mecca take for granted is how dang good their sales training is and their sales leadership and all the technology to support it is just world class. It really, really is. Everybody else in all these other industries are fighting for their freaking lives. They just don't get that nourishment. And so that was something that was very satisfying was to be able to come in and train on sales in what I would think was a pretty rudimentary way, but it would drastically move the needle for these groups. They didn't even have a sales script. Anyway, so um, that is always transitive. And so I think that anybody in DDD should really think about that and know that they've harnessed and developed a skill set that they can take almost anywhere with them into any career. It's going to pay dividends, and we saw that firsthand. So
Yeah. And talk to me about the vastness of who you were able to consult. Just types of companies, industries, all the above.
yeah, I mean, that was a wild like 2.5 years doing that, running DDD Con and running the Circle, the Mastermind group together, and the consulting, and we consulted so many that we started to pull them together into like boot camps because right we can't scale this, we can't
Yeah.
fly around one-on-one endlessly, it's impossible. So we started doing boot camps, but painting companies, go door to door for painting. Obviously, there's pest, there's solar, but predominantly roofing. Roofing was really the one that stuck out. There's so many roofing companies and they all need so much help. So we did majority roofing, I'd say. I remember doing during COVID and we couldn't do any trips. We're doing everything virtually. I did a sewer company, which was, interesting. And there's fiber and utility and different things like that. But yeah, it's and seeing how much the DDD playbook was transitive again to all of these different orgs with adjustments was really cool. But yeah, there's so many things you can go out there and do door to door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you see? You found a lot of common things or gaps which all these companies had, which you guys could figure out pretty fast. Like you said, sales training is pretty big.
Mhm.
Sales leadership is really big. Were there other gaps where they were just missing out on, or there was just common mistakes they were just doing?
Yeah. Vision, you know, um, like what are you here to scale to do? Like there was no path to leadership. There was no growth opportunity really at any of these places. They hadn't put that together for him. And so, it's all very, hey, come in, here's like a starting sales job and here's what it pays. And then maybe we'll talk about it at some point, but maybe you can be a manager of some kind, but I don't really know what that means yet. So we'll talk about that when we get there. And so of course the churn is going to be really difficult. You're going to have reps come in and no matter what you're selling D to D, it's grind. It's always a grind. And so they get to the point they're like, what's next? And the company has nothing to offer. And so that was always one of the first things we consult on is say, hey, what are you helping your people grow into? You're hiring sales reps. You tell me that's what you need, but you're only going to keep these people by having a path for them that is so much greater than being a sales rep. And if you can already have that prepared and weave that into your recruiting from the very beginning, then you're going to recruit better people because the ones that really are worth their weight to contribute to your org are the ones that are going to want to stay a long time. And they're only going to want to stay a long time if they see the potential that's going to be worth it for them. Can I be a manager? What's after that? Like not just my short term, really what is my
Yeah.
long-term path with you? And that was largely unanswered. in all these other companies.
And that brings up a good point. Even when we're looking at data, we are seeing a lot of the companies are focused on hiring new talent all the time because they're going through and churning and their retention is really low.
Right.
And they think the problem they can fix is just by hiring more people. And over again, they're spending more amount of capital to recruit new reps. In reality, the actual value of this rep is not calculated over the course of 3 or 4 or 5 years because they're missing on the part of like 1 year of training costs this much, but the revenue itself they're missing out on by not retaining this rep is 4 times more. And I think, do you think that's a pretty common mistake which happens all across duty or home services where they just focus too much on bringing new talent?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's a double-edged sword because again, like I was saying, no matter what you are selling, it's always going to be a grind if it is direct to consumer.
Right.
It's just a very hard medium, to cold call these people basically every time. And so it's always going to churn out a high number. But I think that too many companies are complacent in that reality, and that number is way larger than it needs to be. And they like to convince themselves sometimes that it's okay because they say, well, if they never get to this point and this point, then we know our fixed costs for the commission stack and things like that is going to always be relatively low. You know what I mean? Like I'm basically always going to be paying rookie pay in perpetuity on whoever I'm hiring. So yeah, there's a lot of churn, but there's also a lot of margin to make up for that. And that is obviously such a short-sighted way, and you're not going to scale your business that way. You have to invest in people. They have to make more money,
Mm-hmm.
but not only that, they have to feel growth. They have to feel more purpose, not just money.
Got
And
it.
so, yeah, it's pretty self-defeating to over focus on that and not truly prepare a very meaningful and very serious, long-term plan for these people.
Makes sense.
So now let's fast forward to today.
Today,
RFX, running that. What's up with the roofing industry? You're now what, 4 years past when you were doing the consulting side?
yeah, about.
Roughly so. Okay.
Mhm.
So talk to me about where it's at.
Yeah, I transitioned out of Aptive about 3.5 years ago, and that was very difficult. But I really, man, there's a lot going on at the time. Solar was just raging, right? I mean, it was on a warpath,
Yeah.
absolutely popping off. Everybody felt like it was the second coming of D2D, and everyone, was rushing to go to that. And I was very, very close to doing that as well. I almost went into solar, had some really good opportunities I was very seriously considering. But with all the consulting experience, I had been exposed to roofing so much that I realized, yeah, roofing's going to be a lot harder, but I feel like it's more blue ocean, that I can actually impact that space a lot more. Because your average solar company has pretty good, sales training, recruiting practices. They have good technology, good LMS, like all these things,
Come from
right?
the industry.
Yeah, like just the average
Yeah.
is pretty well set up. Where in roofing, that is so not true. The average roofing company is like drowning for help in every single one of those ways. And so I saw a bigger opportunity to move the needle and leave an impact in roofing over solar. Solar would have been, to me at that time, a little bit of selling out would have been a little bit on the easier side, right? Ride the momentum, slide into a really good role, at these companies. But I wanted to really put myself out there and try to influence the space as a whole. And so that's what really galvanized me towards roofing, right? And it has been hard. I mean, it's a very challenging industry because it's playing catch up in so many ways to everything else. The culture is so different. It's very blue collar. The demographic looks and feels and talks and acts completely different. Amazing people, but they don't know what they don't know a lot of the time. So you feel very service oriented, which is great, but it is an uphill battle at the same time because they're starting from scratch with sales training
Right.
and how to be a leader and how to, use a knocking app a lot of the time and things like that. And so I knew it was going to be hard. I will say it was even harder than I thought it was going to be. But roofing in general is fantastic. I mean, you talk about the opportunity. I mean, solar just recently hit 3.5 million uh, residential installs in the United States, lifetime, lifetime. That was like 6 months ago or whatever that happened. But in roofing, there's over 5 million re-roofs that happen every year, not new construction. Those are
Right.
re-roofs, right? And so the opportunity is there, and I liked it because it was one of the only things you go door to door with that you're never going to have to convince someone that they need to have it. You have to have a roof until Elon figures out how to have invisible roofs or something or not have them, like you have to have a roof.
Right.
And so that's a significant advantage, and I like that. But then the sales process comes to, do you need one right now or not? Let's talk about that, right? So I like that value proposition. I like the stance of the sale in relation to the consumer and the softer door. There's other challenges, right? Pros to or cons to the pros, but yeah, roofing in general is complex. It's interesting. It's new. It's underserved. And honestly, I knew that it was ripe for disruption. And that's what kind of excited me the most. I'm like, man, if we can come in and do these things and bring this to the industry, we can make a significant impact and maybe ruffle some feathers, but really, level up the companies, the reps, experience, and ultimately the customer wins the most. So
Yeah, and you just talked about how the disruption needs to happen. We just talked about the sales training, sales leadership, especially coming to roofing, which is saturated by very small players, right? Like we talked about before the podcast, like 3 to 4 is the average size of the roof company. What is the way for them to scale from 3 to 4 to like 20-man roofing company, or like what is the gap which exists for all these companies to truly scale? Because I'm sure there's a reason why they're not able to tap out from what they've been doing for the last 5, 10, 15 years.
yeah, it's sales processes.
Mm.
In roofing, that is the bane of their existence. And so in their defense, it's very tricky. And it's even trickier than I thought, certainly when I was consulting. It's very black and white.
Yeah.
And I even gave Sam and I joke about this sometimes, but I think we gave advice at the time that I cringe at now. That I'm like, that wasn't the right, thing to say. I was a little ignorant, but well intentioned. But in roofing, it's predominantly an insurance model, meaning that you're going door to door. There's been a storm, and someone wants to replace their roof. They're going to have insurance pay for it. They're going to file an insurance claim. Insurance hopefully is going to approve it and therefore pay for it. And you're just involved to do the roof that ends up getting approved. And they just pay their deductible, right? And so that sounds really good in essence, but there's a lot of moving parts to the insurance process. And this is 95% of all roofing door-to-door revenue is done in this model. And so you have a lot of sales reps who haven't figured out time management and how to outsource the right things so they can get to the one action that actually makes them money, which is selling. You have all these guys in roofing who they'll go sell 20, 30 accounts in a week because there was an amazing storm and they're crushing it. They're signing everybody up. But guess what? If they do that week 1, week 2, they're not doing it again because week 2 is going to require them to go back to all those from week 1 and go pick up a check, go do another inspection, go meet the inspector out at the property from the carrier. There's so many additional steps now that they're incurring on everyone in the sales, and they take them all on themselves. And so they're project managers as well as sales reps. And it makes no sense at all. No sense. They need to basically sign and drive, right? They need to just sign somebody up, not ghost the customer, still build rapport, check in, be present, but then go right back to selling and generating revenue. But they go on it's a parabola in insurance roofing where it's like I sell a ton, then I sell none because I'm just managing my pipeline for a while. And then it slows down enough where I go sell again, which then makes it difficult on the roofing owners because how can I keep my labor busy on a consistent basis when I can't really predict the new job inflow from you? And then how do I control cash outlay as well, based on the business needs when you're going up and down like this? So, both sides on the business ownership side and on the sales side, it's a struggle. But more than anything, that's why they don't scale is because, roofers should be making so much more money than they do in a year. The golden door is at 2.5 million for roofing. It could be so much higher and should be so much higher if the industry was in a place with sophistication and sales processes to allow reps to just sell, 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 not sell, project manage, sell back and forth, if that makes
That brought
sense.
up a really good point you just said there. It's a lot about how can they be efficient, right? You just talked about how their cost goes up if the sales are not coming through. The labor is sitting on the bench and not doing anything. So how do these businesses, I guess, if there is gaps there from margin perspective, for a regular roofing business, are they missing out on a lot of revenue because they're not doing XYZ? If that's sales, which we talked about, which is great, but besides sales, are there other places they're just not being efficient, or there's gaps which they can control on to make more margins?
For sure. Oh yeah. I mean, even though Sam and I, eventually we became qualified, by the way, to set the record straight. Like it was just, in the beginning we were kind of like learning with him, as we're on these trips. But eventually, yeah, there's so many things that we could help them optimize in their business. I mean, at the end of the day, very few in roofing have a clear understanding of their P&L and the implications of it. They don't know their EBITDA. They don't really know what they're averaging in like an incentive cost. They have no idea. You have to like walk them through the math and be like, hey, you probably thought you were here. You're actually here. That's good or bad news, depending on that number, right? So they don't know how to budget the margin that they do have and allocate it to the right places. There's also a lot of dead weight on the operations side in roofing for sure. It's just antiquated. Roofing is stuck in the Stone Age, medieval times. You have people on floppy disk and paper files and things like that. I say that jokingly, but it's also not untrue. I mean, they really Google Sheet, paper files. It's hard to be efficient when you don't have good systems like that. So we'd come in and there's always a big section of what we would do where we'd sit down and say, show us how you actually take a job all the way through, invoicing all the way through, who touches it, what program they do it in. And that was always very revealing, right? Like, okay, all right, we're going to consolidate these three things into this one cool new platform I'm going to show you. And we'd help them sign up and we'd teach them how to use that platform, right? And then we link all those things together where overnight they would get tremendously faster, but they get a lot more efficient. And I think the number one thing that was easy to point out too was just trackability. If you're not tracking it, you're not improving it. You just don't even know where you stand today. So then how do you know, how you're doing in relation to that baseline? And so helping them with KPIs and having the right technology to have good transparency on that and to weave all that together is a game changer. And again, you feel like it's pretty low hanging fruit. It is. But man, that would move the needle for so many roofing companies to just level up on the sophistication of their operations. Overnight, they're going to capture significantly more margin from speed, from cutting out unnecessary admin and overhead, and compressing some of those costs.
Mhm. Yeah, it's what gets measured gets managed, right? And
Yep.
so if you're not tracking it, and that's the thing that I personally love about software space is having the ability to actually see the finite details so that you know where do I need to make the incremental changes.
Yeah.
So you mentioned roofing coming, in the Stone Age. We're getting close to the 21st century now, maybe. What new tech is there? What new evolutions have you seen that the companies that are adopting this are having those exponential growth years?
Well, PE has been very interested in home services for 2, 3 years. It's been on a heater more than normal, and it's not slowing down. And so there's been a lot of VCs and PEs and people pouring money into the industry. And they refer to it as a legacy industry. It's always been around. It's not going anywhere, but it's a legacy industry that is dated. And so that's the sweet spot for a lot of these, a lot of the investment dollars is to say, where can we come in, juice it, and level it up and take an industry that already has such a use case and get 2, 3, 5, 10x out of the same mechanics that are going on. And so there have been some cool advances, in the last while, and I think it is starting to speed up. AI in the space is interesting. And we've been able at RFX, I mean, just shameless plug for on our end, we kind of backed into our tech solution, right? Because Roofix, we're a roofing company, been around since 2009. Through and through, we are a roofing company. That's what we do. That's our bread and butter. But when we started building roofs for solar companies, because depending on what state they're in, 15, 20, 25% of solar projects need to get a roof redone if solar is actually going to go on the roof, right? And so we started serving those companies and saying, hey, regardless of the market you're in, we'll go build a roof for you. You let us know about it. And they said, that's great. But here's some things that we really need to make that hum. We need an instant roof quote. Well, 3 years ago, no one had an instant roof quote, literally nobody. And so we said, how do we figure that out, right? And so we knew that we could capture a lot of partners and a lot of success if we could problem solve some of those pains. And so nowadays, there's fast forward to today, there's other people doing instant roof quotes. The way that they approach it's very different from the way that we approach it because they're just software companies and putting together the formulas and the ideology to give you, an instant roof quote, which is a really cool concept in roofing sales. That really, breaks the glass ceiling on what you can do because now I can process a customer's needs way faster, right? Now I can do it instantly on the call, or I can even set up a widget online. They can do it themselves. Or now I don't have to go to the job site to do a whole inspection. So I don't have to dispatch a sales rep or an inspector and incur a cost there. And maybe I get the job, maybe I don't. For $5 or whatever, I can get an instant roof quote and let this customer know what it's going to look like. So that changes the landscape considerably on what people are trying to do to find these customers and how to transact them, right? And so for us, tackling that was the first thing. We got an instant roof quote. And then they said, well, we want to know what's going on with the job, right? And so we said, okay. So anyway, you get where this is going. We started to realize we need to actually lean into this. It's what the industry is asking for. There's a huge need. And so we got a CTO, we got a dev team. We went all in and created an actual platform. And it's become really robust because people keep asking for more and more features. And it's to the point today where I'm really proud of it. But we had no intention in the beginning of creating a tech platform. We just needed a bridge between solar and roofing, and none existed. And so that's where, we're at today where, we're able to instantly, you answer a couple questions about the roof, instantly pull AI imagery in, flyover data, JSON, files of all the roof characteristics with our pricing logic, and spits out an instant price that we've put, tens and tens and tens of thousands of orders through to refine the pricing logic on, where we know it's a good build price. So how this has changed the landscape, so you can appreciate that, because maybe that's a bunch of stuff you're like, okay, kind of cool, but let me just actually double click on that for a second. What it allows is, because we're a roofing company and a tech platform, we are underwritten with lenders in every state because we're licensed, we go build a roof. So you marry those, and now there's virtual dealers who can sell roofs virtually for the first time ever. There have been people who've been doing it, but it's been a very bootstrapped, kind of messy. They have
process.
Totally manual. They have to partner with a roofing company locally in a market who's stuck in the Stone Age and trying to wrap their head around what this virtual guy is wanting him to do. Go dispatch, get a price somehow. There's weeks going by before any of this is happening, right? And then they can only do that one market because roofers are so fragmented. They're only in one market. So if I want to advertise in all these different areas, I need 100 Rolodex of roofers. But now they can get an instant roof quote 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, any state in the lower 48, and we can actually go build it, as well. And so that's been really fun. I take a lot of pride in that solution because now it just opens up accessibility to customers who need help with their roof and have no other way to get that solved. So, but there's so much more going on in the space.
Fascinating. Yeah, that's super fascinating. I mean, I can see how just the experience of being able to get a quotation right away itself is a huge value prop for not just the person selling it, but the homeowner, right? Because a lot of times it's you don't want to make decisions over the period of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So if you can actually get it right then and there, then it's way faster for you to go move and fix those things you want to fix. So especially in storms, I can believe if you need to get your roof replaced ASAP, then the fact of the process of you waiting for 2 weeks, getting the quotation, reviewing those options, you already might have the need to get that done by the time you're actually getting the quotation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And there are, I mean, a lot of roofing is insurance, like I said, but it's starting to move more retail and move more towards cash or financing, because insurance is kind of moving the goalposts, the carriers, on what the approval process looks like and so forth. And so this is the need for that's gonna increase more and more as more people are priced out of their insurance policies, or they can't afford their deductible, or they don't live in a storm state where it's really
Right.
relevant, right?
Yeah.
Because that's, your storm states are Colorado, Texas, Florida, Carolinas, places like that. But, California's, there are a lot of people there,
Yeah.
and so there's so many other states that like insurance isn't even applicable to them, that aren't being served. Anyway, so the TAM for roof sales is growing and becoming more efficient every day.
Huge. No, I mean, it's all speed to lead, right? Whether it's back in our pest control days, it was getting a same day done, or in solar, it's getting them, sold same day, site survey done. Now roofing, it's like you're saying, it's all about that speed process to be able to essentially revolutionize an industry, help it grow faster, help everybody actually have a bigger vision and see what is now possible, instead of just, oh, well, the biggest company that ever did the most revenue used to be X, so I guess that's a cool goal. It's now we can break that glass ceiling. Now we can move forward for it. And so that's my, I guess, last question on here is, what's next for you guys? What's the future look like? What's growth?
Yeah, we've built this really interesting solution, really initially for solar, right? Where technically all of our solar partners, they're dealers for us. And so we really are a dealer model the whole time, right? It doesn't feel like a traditional dealer relationship, but it really is in essence. And we realize, okay, hang on, where else can we apply this solution? Because we can provide an instant roof quote, we can provide instant credit approval and financing within the platform. They get full pipeline visibility and management, direct access to our production team to ask any, like they get everything that they need. It's totally turnkey. So and our SLAs are great. We're going to build a roof with a permit in 10 days, without a permit in 7 days across the country. So like that is unprecedented all together. And where can we leverage this? And we realize like, holy cow, solar's been great, but there are so many industries that dwarf it, right? You have property management, which, they have so many assets that they own that they need instant roof quotes for, and someone to just go out and take care of a repair or replacement. So that's been fascinating for us to break into. There's government contracting, which is largely inefficient. You go look at sam.gov and all these different places, and people are only able to get out a commercial bid, a couple every so often. But with our new process, we're able to bid really all day long on all these different jobs. And we're not going to win a lot of them because it's, the nature of the game, but we're going to win a lot more than other people trying to do government contracting. So that opens that up, right? Real estate brokers. There's so many times that they run into a bad roof as they're trying to, finish a deal and get it. Yeah, the inspection comes back and so forth, and they have to just, fix it right away. We're not going to slow down the closing. Keep your same closing date, right? We don't have to re-sign and do all kinds of delay and cold feet and so forth. Like we'll give you an instant price, and you can finance it or do it, whatever. So there's so many really cool things like that we've realized what we've built is special, and we can now go apply it to so many different industries. So we're on the brink of some really, really cool, pretty macro partnerships and solving some needs that I'm very excited about.
Love it. Well, dude, you're the man. Appreciate you being on here, making the flight out. We did it.
Yeah, we did.
Finally made it happen.
Yeah, and
That was a lot of fun.
our sponsor,
And our unofficial
Liquid
sponsor, Licky
I
Death.
don't know what camera. Oh, this camera. There you
It's
go.
the goods.
There it is, baby.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
No, thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate you, dude. That's great.